And she was muted! It's fine. At least I noticed before. You guys didn't even have to tell me this time. She's leveling up. Well, hello everyone and welcome. This is Briony Rose Smith live in the Forbidden Library, and today we have some extra time. So we're just gonna get a bit extra reading done. Methinks. Muteroni for like 10 seconds. She was on it today. So we're continuing to read Pompeii, Its Life and Art by August Mao. Hello everyone. Hello Rahel. Hello Nimby. Hello Howdy. Billy the Bomb. If I could read a Warhammer book and not get done for the copyright, I totally would. Hello Bong Bong. Hello Benjamin. Hello Chase. That's all I have to say to you thinking it would be a better stream. Just It's a shame this model can't pull its tongue, because I'd like to do that. Just go By Joe's name, it's Briony Rose Smith live from the Forbidden Library. Yes, it is. And we're gonna read about the sanctuary of the city Lars, like a Shrek. Or Lars, like a... I don't know what a law would be. Like a laugh! Intelligence 0. Just copy and paste the entire Warhammer book, paste it into AI, then ask to reword it. Unethical life hacks? No. Nah. How do your number one... Sorry, I'm just peeking at this weird extra community thing they've added. So, like, the people who chat the most get to be number one in... as a fan, apparently. Which is very silly, because lurkers are good too. But it's... I don't know. I was just looking. Howdy's winning. Do not do this. I would never do this. Chase is second. I know, it's weird, isn't it? I guess it's supposed to push interaction, you know, with the whole, you get pushed if you get more comments and stuff. Interact, so prove yourself to be the bestest of viewers. No. But no, I'm okay with you guys. Just, you look. Don't you give in to YouTube's pressuring. I should be pressuring you myself, but don't do it. It's okay. You do what you want to do. Abominable intelligence? That's what they should change AI to be. Abominable intelligence. Weird, innit? Makes me self-conscious of how much I comment. Exactly! It's silly! Just, you just be comfy. You ignore them. If I have a way to turn it off, I will, because I don't need that in my life. We don't need that. Apparently you're gaining XP by doing it, which is like, to me is like, does that mean we have channel points now? No, it doesn't look like I can turn it off. Adorable intelligence. It's definitely not adorable. Terrifying intelligence. But anyway. I had a look at the settings. I can't turn it off. So you'll just have to all vie for first position as per usual. Anyway. Chapter 13. The Sanctuary of the City Lars. Channel points from AliExpress. It is. Like, you get to level up and you have XP, but, like, you can't do anything with it yet. So, like, channel points when YouTube. You clearly already have the technology. Give us the channel points. Then YouTube and Twitch can have the same channel points and everyone can be equal. Anyway. In earlier times, a street opened into the Forum south of the Malisium. Later, apparently, in the time of Augustus, it was closed, and the end, together with adjoining space at the south, was occupied by a building which measures approximately 60 by 70 Roman feet. I love because we've, like, talked about so many different ways of measurement in this. Every time a measurement is stated, it has to be specifically stated what measurement we're using. They're just waiting for another few Twitch meltdowns to catch all the levers for Gamma. My mother has just phoned me because she has wonderful timing like this. BRB. Returned. My mother has let me go. She wanted a full-on chat, but I was like, Mother, I'm streaming. And she's like, oh, sorry. Bless. No, we're gonna meet up on Monday. She's like, oh, then what are you doing for the rest of the day? I was like, oh, then I'm going to the gym. Oh, well, and I'm like, I'm free tomorrow. Oh, I'm not free tomorrow. Human adult beings trying to connect is difficult. I do, in fact, have a mother. I didn't just poof into existence. I have a mother that I have a decent, if not good, relationship with. This is a 1999 reference that flew over my head. Yeah. But welcome Local Goober, welcome Boris. You guys popped in. What was it? Question: why is there a leaderboard? I don't know. YouTube did it. It's YouTube's fault. I don't have a setting for it or anything to turn it off. So a leaderboard exists on how much you guys chat. I don't know much about it. Let me see if I can find some info. Cause like there's nothing even in like my like screen of like why it exists. I don't know. I don't know. Yay! All done. Howdy. Congrats on finals being over and getting a 1.0. I assume that is very, very good. Because you're a smart cookie and you deserve... You're very, very good. So you get big brain. You worked very hard. Well done. You blame me? Fine. I'll take your blame. I'll take your blame and I'll bake it into a cake and I'll eat it. That's what I'll do with your blame. Nom 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 nom. Tasty blame. Anyway, where the hell were we? We're like 20 minutes into the stream, and I have only read a singular paragraph. It's not good enough. It's 98 out of 100? Holy duck. You got 2 things wrong out of 100 things. That's so good. That's incredible, Howdy. Well done. In richness of material and architectural detail, this was among the finest edifices at Pompeii. Its walls and floors were completely covered with marble. Now we see only rough masonry stripped of its veneering, but enough vestiges remain to enable us to reconstruct the whole in some sexy figs. Both rear and side views of the interior given. So this is what the sanctuary of the city of Les. View large image. That is what it looked like. Figs, 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 figs. We love figs. Sexy, sexy fig. A fig that lets me enlarge it without having to open a secondary window as well. Oh. Beautiful. So you got the main room unroofed with an altar at the center, an apse shrine, the recesses, and a niche facing the forum. Opening into the main room at the rear is a large apse, which gives the building a peculiar character. In the inner part of the apse is a broad foundation, about 6 feet high, on which stood a shrine, Adicula, containing a pedestal for 3 statues, if not more than life-size. The foundation projects in front of the pedestal, forming a table for offerings. A base of the same height as the foundation of the shrine runs along the walls of the apse. It supported 2 columns and 2 attached half columns on the right and the same number on the left. Look at that fig. Fortunately, my brain works on random intervals. Sometimes it plays out of it recaps on loops instead of the lesson. Well, it doesn't show in your score, that much is for sure. On either side of the main room is a recess, containing a pedestal for a statue of more than life size. The 2 entrances were flanked by pilasters nearly 2 Roman feet square, while each entrance was divided into 3 parts by 2 columns. There were 3 niches about 6 feet above the floor in each of the 3 walls. In each of the side walls, where did I get 3? Of the main room, and 2 more at the rear. All were originally flanked by small pilasters which rested on projecting base. The remains of an altar may still be seen in the middle of the room. The height of both side and rear walls can be approximately computed from the existing remains, the basis of computation for the side walls being the thickness of the pilasters at the entrance. The rear part of the building was certainly not less than 45 feet high, excluding the gable. Which kind of feet? Roman feet? Oscan feet? Because the diagrams, I know, look pretty. No worries, Boris. I hope you have a good day at work. Exclusive of the gable, while the sides could not have been more than 30 or at most 35 feet. This difference in height, taken with other indications, oblige us to conclude that the central room was treated as a paved court open to the sky. Only the apse and the wings were roofed, so it had a nice open roof. A small fun fact, this style of building is seen in that figure has influenced Renaissance design of churches, specifically that proportions with small extrusions and the sizes of a dome inside. Oh! We love it when we could add extra info. Lovely. It is evident that we have here a place of worship, yet not properly speaking a temple. The shrine in the apse, with its broad pedestal for several relatively small images, presents a striking analogy to the shrines of the lairs found in so many private houses. Cities, as well as households, had their guardian spirits. The worship of these tutelary divinities reorganized by Augustus, who ordered that just as the genius of the master of the house was worshipped at the family shrine, so his genius should receive honor together with the laws of the different cities. Thus, in each city the emperor was to be looked upon as father, the head of the common household. As the house had its shrine for the lairs, so also had the city. That in Rome was near the spot on which the Arch of Titus was afterwards erected. Augustus had a crazy ego, like, Jesus. I can't imagine being like, everyone must worship me in every home. Yes. I could barely register the fact that sometimes 10 people watch me, let alone every human being of the empire. Strange, very strange, wild. What did he even do? Be the first emperor of Rome? Not even that important. So you want us to take down our briny shrines after all this? You may choose to have briny shrines if you wish, but they are not mandatory. Everyone has their briny shrine. Ah! Moving on. North side of the sanctuary of the city lairs. So the lairs are like household city protection spirits, kind of shiz. Oh, I just finished carving in ebony wood the Briony idol. I don't even know how to respond to that idea. Undoubtedly, we should recognize in this edifice the sanctuary of the laws of the city, Liberarium Publicum. On the pedestal of the shrine in the apse, the genius of Augustus probably stood, represented by a statue of the emperor himself, with his toga drawn over the back of his head, offering a libation. On his right and on his left were the two Lars, likely those represented in paintings, and in the little bronze images so often found in these household shrines. In connection with the Lars, the members of a family honoured other gods. Penates. To whose special protections the head of the household had committed himself and his interests. As we shall see later, in house shrines, diminutive bronze figures representing Hercules, Mercury, Fortuna, and other divinities are often found together with those of the Lars. It is quite possible that other gods were likewise associated with the Lars of the city, and perhaps here in the two chapels at the side of the main room images of Ceres and Bacchus were placed. Regarding the statues that stood in the 8 niches, it is better to refrain from conjecture. On the outside of the building, under the portico of the Mausoleum, was a small platform, the raised floor of which was reached by steps. How proud you have a Buddha. Buddha's a good choice. Found it in the attic in a steel box with talismans. I'm not Bleh. At the edge of the forum in front of the building are 8 square blocks of basalt, which still have traces of iron clamps by which marble veneering was fastened on. These supported the columns of a portico which was joined with the porticos of the Mausoleum and the temple of Vespasian, and took the place of the forum colonnade. It, as the main room of the building was open to the sky, the portico also must have been without a roof. There is no trace of any support for the ends of the rafters at the rear. The columns in front, probably of 2 orders, one above the other, were merely for ornament. Possibly awnings were at times stretched over the area of the portico as a protection against sun and rain. So they didn't have any roofs there, but they did at least sometimes like stretch something over it. But it was mostly for show. So that place seemed to be the temple of various gods, but not quite gods important enough to warrant their own temples. Vespasian. He was another Roman emperor, but apparently not a genius like Augustus. I know, right? I'm not joking about the Buddha statue. It's on my desk right now. Like, Buddha statue is good. My granddad used to have a Buddha statue in his garden. It wasn't that big, but when I was small, I used to be able to sit on its lap. It was like a tiny chair. I'm far too big for that now, but I remember. Lucky me, school's out for summer. I'll have significantly less bumps on the way home. Yay! Please don't run anyone over, normal size phantom. You do not get points for running people over. We will not slander Vespasian, savior of Rome. The place of gods that were not Augustus, were not in Augustus' good books for various reasons, including lack of cheese. Yeah, well, even Bacchus was in there. You'd think Bacchus would be his bestie. All that wine, but no. Does Bacchus have cheese? No, not good enough. But if you do, kids are worth... No! We're not assigning points to running people over. Chapter 14. Temple of Vespasian. South of the sanctuary of the city Lares is another religious edifice of an entirely different character. Passing from the forum across the open space once occupied by the portico, of which no remains have been found, we enter a wide doorway and find ourselves in a four-sided court, somewhat irregular in shape. The front part is occupied by a colonnade. Here's Vespasian's temple. At the rear, a small temple stands upon a high podium, which projects in front of the cellar and reached by 2 flights of steps. The pedestal for the image of the divinity is built against the rear wall. In the middle of the court is an altar faced with marble and adorned on all 4 sides with reliefs of moderately good workmanship. The sacrificial scene shown in the accompanying illustration is on the front side facing the entrance to the court. A priest with a toga drawn over his head is, in the manner prescribed for those offering sacrifice, pours a libation from a shallow bowl, patra, upon an altar, having the form of a tripod. With him at the left are 2 lictators, with their bundles of rods and flute paper, 2 boys, Camille carrying the utensils for the sacrifice, and an attendant at the right. A bull intended for sacrifice is being brought to the altar by the slayer, and an assistant. In the background is a terraced temple, doubtless the temple before us. The scene represents the dedicatory exercises. The middle intercolumnation of the portico is indictated by the relief, and shown in the plan is wider than the other 2. On the sides of the altar, some of the utensils and ceremonial objects used in sacrificing are represented. At the left, the napkin, the argorial staff, and in the box in which the incense was kept. At the right, the libation bowl, the ladle, and a picture. Bacchus was widely worshipped by Roman emperors in the later years because, hedonism. Because that's when they got their taste for wine. Oh, what a terrible way to go. Vespasian died of diarrhea. It does have the word, well, it doesn't quite have the word die in there. But it nearly has the word die in. So this is what I've just described. The reliefs on the back of the altar, which consist simply of a wreath of oak leaves with a conventional laurel on each side, are of special significance and given a clue to the purpose of the edifice. On the 13th of January, 27 BC, the Senate voted that a civic crown that is one made of oak leaves of the kind awarded to a soldier who had saved the life of a Roman citizen, should be placed above the door of the house in which Augustus lived, and that the doorposts should be wreathed with laurel. From that time, the civic crown and the laurel were recognized as attributes denoting imperial rank. This temple, therefore, was built in the honor of an emperor. From the inscriptions of the Arval Brethren, we learned that in the case of a living emperor, a bull was the suitable victim, but that an ox was sacrificed to an emperor who had been deified after death. As the victim on our altar is a bull, the temple must have been dedicated to an emperor during his lifetime. With these facts in mind, it will not be difficult to ascertain to whose worship the building was consecrated. We have spoilers in the title, though. Vespasian became emperor only 10 years before Mount Etna erupted, while they had time and effort to make a temple and cult to him. That's a hell of an influence he had, yeah. His last words were he'd die standing while having massive diarrhea. He stood up, then died of exhaustion in the arms of those who helped him stand. Well, he did what he said he was gonna do. Deified, not defied, apologies. Very similar words. Thank you for correcting me. He did stop the civil wars during and became the final emperor during the year of 4 emperors. Interesting. The coins of Augustus have both the civic crown and the laurel, but those of his immediate successors have only the former. In the year 74, the laurel again appears with the crown on the coins of Vespasian and Titus, and we may suppose that the distinction formerly conferred on Augustus was about this time revived in honour of Vespasian, and was indeed quite natural that men should think of Vespasian and Augustus together. Both restored peace and order after disastrous civil wars. Both adopted severe repressive measures against luxury and immorality, and both adorned Rome with great public buildings. The Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline, which Augustus had repaired and made more magnificent, Vespasian rebuilt from the foundation after it was burned in 69. The Senate, which had suffered so seriously at the hands of Nero, had reasons to be deeply grateful to Vespasian, who treated it with marked respect. In this, also following the example of Augustus, if the annals of the region of the Flavian emperors were not so meagre, we could very likely find a decree of the Senate honouring Vespasian with the civic crown and the laurel. Such a decree might well have suggested the founding of a temple, and the placing of these symbols of peace and victory upon its altar. You did, you said spoilers! Spoilers! It's fine. We've clearly hit a special interest in history for you. 2,000-year-old spoilers, everyone! The temple itself was built together with the court. After the earthquake of 63, and at the time of the eruption, the work was not entirely completed. The walls of the cellar and the entrance from the forum had received their veneering of marble, and were in a finished state, but those of the court, divided off into a series of deep panels above which small pediments alternated with arches, had received only a rough coat of stucco, and were still awaiting completion. The temple must have been built in the time of Vespasian, who reigned from 68 to 79 AD, and as this emperor possessed too great simplicity of character to allow men to worship him as a god while he was still alive, it was probably dedicated to his genius. The rooms at the rear of the temple, shown on the plan, were entered by a door at the right. They may have served as a habitation for the Scaristan, or as a place of storage for the sacrificial utensils. The north room was also connected with rooms belonging to the sanctuary of the Lairs, the purpose of which is unknown. Oh. Ooh, the building of Eumachia. This is a big building. It has the number 15 on its key. So it's got a portico forming part of the colonnade, the forum. Yeah, they're probably like genie, like genes. The genies. Yeah, probably family, not intellect. You're correct. That's a good fig. Yeah, look at it. View larger image. Oh my god, so much fig. Oh, it goes up to 18. Huh. This is big fig. I like big figs, and I cannot lie. This is a big building. Small niches for statues, apposite niches, large niches accessible by means of steps. The entrance, the passage room to stairway, the porter's room, the colonnade, pedestal of the statue of Cornelia Augusta, light courts, corridor, broad niche with the statue of Eumachia. Passage leading from Abadanza Street with a door opening in the corridor, a stone with a ring, rectangular elevations, and 18 remains of masonry. The plan of the large building on the east side of the forum between the Temple of Vespasian and Abadanza Street is Eumachia. The interior consists of a large oblong court with 3 apses at the rear and a colonnade about the 4 sides. On 3 sides there is a corridor behind the colonnade with numerous windows opening upon it. The corridor could be entered by 3 doors, 2 at the front end of the court, connecting with the colonnade, and a third at the rear, entered from the end of a passage leading up from Abadanza Street, the grade of which at this point is considerably below the pavement of the building. That's true, they had CHs but not a ch sound. Eumachia. An inscription appears in large letters on the entablature of the portico, and again on a marble tablet over the side of the entrance in Abadanza Street. Eumachia, sacred publica nomo su et nomistri, much Greekary / Romany, it Latiny. Eumachia, daughter of Lucius Eumachius, a city priestess, in her own name and that of her son Marcus Numistris Fronto, built at her own expense the portico, the corridor, and the colonnade, dedicating them to Cornelia Augusta and Paetus. Paetus. I know it's Paetus, but it's got a pie in it. The word Paetus in such connections has no English equivalent and is difficult to translate. It sums up a single concept, the qualities of faithful affection, contentious devotion, and obedience to duty, which, in the Roman view, characterized the proper conduct of children towards their parents and grandparents. Here, mother and son united in dedicating the building to personifications or deifications of the perfect harmony and the regard for elders that prevailed in the imperial family. So, is this a building to Augustus's parents? Pietius. Ah, like piety. Ah. So it doesn't have a direct translation, but there is a word that sounds like it that could mean it. Yeah, I know. A woman? A woman? In Rome? Not in my Rome. The reference of the dedication can only be to the relation between the Emperor Tiberius and his mother Livia. It cannot be applied to Nero and Agrippina, for the reason that the walls of the building were decorated in the third Parmenian style, which in Nero's time was no longer in vogue. In 22 AD, when Livia was very ill, the Senate voted to erect an altar to Pietas Augusta. In the following year, Drusus, the son of Tiberius, gave expression to his regard for his grandmother by placing her likeness upon his coins, with the words Pietas. On the coins of colonies also, of Sagrosa and another the name which is not known, the Pietas Augusta appears. Apparently about the same time. Not long afterwards, the harmonious relationship between Tiberius and his mother gave place to mutual superstition and hostility. The dedication therefore points to the earlier part of the reign of Tiberius, and in this period the building was no doubt erected. The statue of Concordia Augusta, a female figure with a gilded cornucopia, was found in the building. The head, which has not been preserved, probably bore the features of Livia. By this dedication, the building of Inumachia, as the Malaseum later, was placed under the protection of the imperial house. Yeah, it wasn't out in the magazine of Vogue anymore, so they didn't use that style anymore. While the parts are enumerated in the dedicatory inscription, neither the name of the building as a whole nor the purpose is mentioned. A hint of the latter, however, is found in another inscription. A broad niche opens into the corridor at the rear, directly behind the largest apse. Here stood a marble statue of a beautiful woman, now replaced by a cast. The original is in Naples. Upon the pedestal we read Enumachiae, F. Sacred Publifulonis, dedicated to Enumachia, daughter of Lucius Enumachius, a city priestess by the Fullers. Gonna go make tea? Good. Drink tea. It's great. This building, in which the Fullers had set up in a specially prominent place a statue of a person who had erected it, must in some way have served the purpose of their trade. Clearly enough, it was not a fullery. On the other hand, it was well adapted for a clother's exchange, a bazaar for the sale of cloth and articles of clothing. Tables and other furniture for the convenience of dealers could be placed in the colonnade and the corridor. In the corridor especially, goods exposed for sale in front of the open windows could be conveniently inspected by prospective buyers. Not only by those in the corridor itself, but also by those looking in from the colonnade. The small doors between the corridor and the colonnade could be securely closed, and the entrance from Abadanza Street could be easily guarded. There was only a narrow door at the end of the passage opening into the corridor, and at the street entrance was a porter's room connected by doors both with the passage and with the street. This evidence of unusual precaution suggests that possibility the same side entrance from its close connection with the corridor was intended especially for the conveyance of goods to and from the building, in order that the front entrance might be left for the exclusive use of purchasers and dealers. So basically, it was a really fancy market. Guilds of tanners, dryers, and clothing makers, according to Wikipedia. Yay! Thank you, Wikipedia. Yeah, that's true. Latin and Roman is a bit easier. It's almost easier because you can just sound it out. But problem is, I've grown up low English, so I see some things and I'm like, oh look, that's supposed to be that, but it's like, oh that sound wasn't invented yet. It was the Harrods to the earlier shopping centre. It is! On the assumption that the building was a cloth market, it is clear that the colonnade would naturally be open at all times. The corridor only doing business hours. After business hours, the corridor would be closed for the protection of the goods left there overnight. The windows may have been closed with shutters, as in the Oriental bazaars. Other peculiarities of arrangement also are cleared up by this explanation, but we cannot present them in detail. It is not possible, however, to make out what the purpose was of certain remains of masonry found on the south side of the court, which have now disappeared, or of two rectangular elevations at the rear, or finally of a large stone in the middle of the court in which a movable iron ring is fastened. Our information is so scanty that we are unable to determine in particulars what the requirements of a fuller's exchange might have been. I kind of like that they haven't got all the answers and they're kind of not sure. I like that. It's a mystery. It's the wonderful thing of, like, historians don't know everything. We are guessing, and sometimes we don't even have a good guess. At the time of the eruption, men were still engaged in rebuilding parts of the edifice that had suffered in the earthquake of '63. The front wall at the rear of the portico was finished and had received its veneering of marble, as shown by the existing remains. It conformed to the plan of the earlier structure. The columns and entablature of the portico had not yet been set in place. Considerable portions of them were found in the area in the forum. The wall at the rear of the court, with the 3 marble apices, had been rebuilt, and the workmen had begun to add the marble covering. And without concept of elevators, try explaining this strange hole in the walls to game. That's true. The other walls had remained standing in the time of the earthquake, but the colonnade had been thrown down and was now in the process of erection. The remains of the colonnade were removed in ancient times, probably soon after the destruction of the city. Yet, from the parts that remain, both the old building and of the restorations, we can determine the architectural character with certainty. We give 2 reconstructions of the interior, one showing the front, the other showing the rear. Give us those figs! Showing the front, that's the front. One showing the rear, that's the rear. Interesting. We skipped forward for figs. Worth it. The colonnade and the portico were characterized by the same peculiarity of construction. They were in 2 stories, one above the other, but there was no upper floor corresponding with the immediate entablature. In the case of the portico, this is certain from the treatment of the wall at the rear, the ornamentation of which is carried without interruption high above the level of the entablature. If the appearance of this building alone had been taken into account, it would have been simpler and more effective to place at the front of the portico a single order of large columns, the height of which should correspond with that of the facade. But as the colonnade about the forum was in 2 stories, the front of the portico was made to conform to it. The columns below were of the Doric, those above of the Ionic order. The material, whitish limestone, was the same as that used in the new colonnade of the forum. Nevertheless, by the skilful handling of details, a certain individuality was given to the columns, while in general appearance they harmonized with those about the forum. The portico as a whole stood out by itself as something distinct and characteristic. So what it's saying is that it looks like it has a second floor, but no one's using it. But it isn't actually a second floor. It's a decorative second floor. Doric is the flat OP pillars. Ionic is the ones you use in the thumbnail. Gothic is the elaborate pillars. What a wonderful recap. Thank you so much. Small T question. Which is better, honey or maple? Honey. Honey. Honey, honey. Honey is 100% better than maple syrup to sweeten your tea. Maple syrup's just... I mean, I guess it depends. Honey is going to be more neutral. Maple syrup has a much more distinct flavor than honey, so you're going to get some of that maple flavor in the tea, which admittedly probably could be quite nice depending on the tea, but like depends on the tea. Does that mean if you step on that floor you just crash straight through the first floor? Potentially yes. It doesn't seem to be designed for humans to actually go on, so potentially yes, Red Rich. Also welcome. The columns of the portico were left unfluted, as they were those of the new forum colonnade, and were of the same height, but their proportions were more slender, their ornamental forms were slightly different, and they were set closer together. The pains and skill manifested in well, that yawn just attacked me. It's green tea, honey. Honey, 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 honey. Sweetened with honey. The pains and skill manifested in harmonizing the particular with the general architectural effect reflect much credit upon the Pompeii Board of Public Works. Under the portico at the foot of each column was a statue facing the front of the building. The pedestals, which still remain, assist in determining the places of the columns, of which only one was found in position. The spaces between the columns could be closed by lattice gates, as may be seen from traces of them remaining in the marble pavement. At the south end of the portico, the pavement elsewhere has disappeared. The wall at the rear of the portico, facing the forum, was richly ornamented. The broad entrance in the middle was bridged at the top by a lintel. At the ends are 2 large niches more than 4 feet above the pavement, both reached by flights of steps between each of these, and the doorway is a large apsidal arched niche extending down the pavement. Lastly, in the projecting portions of the wall are 4 smaller niches for statues. The whole facade was overlaid with various kinds of coloured marbles. None of the statues have been found, but the inscriptions belonging to that stood in small niches at the left are extant of a special interest. The names of the persons represented, Aeneas and Romulus, are given, together with a short enumeration of their heroic deeds. These statues were evidently copies of the originals, formed a part of a famous series in Rome. Augustus is set his forum the statues of renowned Roman generals with inscriptions setting forth their services to the state. In this way, he said, the people might obtain a standard of comparison for himself and his successors. At the beginning of the series were Aeneas, the king of Alba Longa, and Romulus. Not one of these statues has been preserved, but some of the inscriptions have been found in Rome, while others are known from copies discovered in Arezzo, where, without doubt, as at Pompeii, they were set up with copies of the statues, a forcible illustration of the striving of the smaller cities to be like Rome. 2 other statues, perhaps representing Julius Caesar and Augustus, stood in the niches at their right, corresponding with those of Aeneas and Romulus. It is not probable that the rest of the series in Rome was duplicated here, because the remaining pedestals in the portico were all designed for figures of larger size. Aeneas. That was Aeneas. Mythological ancestor of Romulus and Remus, founder of Rome. I know about Romulus and Remus, at least. State-sponsored vandals. Correct. Any ideas how big these statues were? Generally throughout Pompeii, they have so many statues. They have! I did not realize they had so many statues. So these seem to be smaller ones. Let's see if we can get a idea from the figs. So these statues would have been in the smaller niches around the area, which is the apsidal niches, I believe, the falls. Maybe. So let's look at the so they'll be here and here. So these would be 2 of the big ones. But the rest would be in some of the other niches, which would have been the broad niche with the statue of Imudibidibi. And I don't know where the smaller ones would have been. Pedestal for the statue of Augusta. Broad niche. And small niche. Tiny niche. Aeneas. Aeneas kind of sounds like the northern way of saying Aeneas. Yeah, it kind of does. Not sure how big these ones would have been. But it sounds like it's a series of statues that Rome has that everyone was like, I want them too. Augustus set up in his forum the statues of renowned... No, we said that one. The colonnade about the court was of marble. The front part, as one entered from the portico, was higher than that on the sides and rear. It must have presented a fine architectural effect. The two series of Corinthian columns, one above the other, reached the height of 30 feet. The wall behind was diversified with niches and completely covered with marble. At the right and at the left, one could pass down the sides under the colonnade or through small doors in the corridor. The walls between the colonnade and the corridor, pierced with large windows, were decorated below with a dado of coloured marbles, and above with paintings upon stucco in the third style. I'm kind of curious what the quality of the statues was. With that quantities, there should be a significant amount of masons with varying skill. Well, some of the if you look up the Naples Museum, or museum in Naples, they probably have some images online of some of these statues we've talked about. Obviously. Many of us won't ever get to go see them for realsies, but that's where most of them are. But a lot of the smaller statues that were good quality probably got nicked not long after, because there were some people who went round and took all the, like, valuable materials and stuff before we even really realized that Pompeii was a thing afterwards. So two smaller aptisal niches at the rear were no higher than the colonnade, but the central apse project above and terminated in the marble pediment. I'm not saying the British, I'm saying the locals for that one, because that was before we started on it. That was before us. That was while Rome was still a thing. We hadn't risen yet. It said in this that there were people who went round Pompeii not long after it happened and took a lot of the stuff then. And then eventually Venice and Britain got into it. Eventually. Some drunk old driver walked off at least 100 caves of stone-covered gold. Oh my god! It's not even evening. Like, normally I read in the evening and that's why I'm yawning so much. But what if I yawned anyway? What if I yawned a lot at 3 p.m? Fragments of which are still to be seen in the building. It was entered through 3 arched doorways, above which apparently there were windows. The image of Concordia Augusta, with the features of Livia, probably stood in the pedestal at the rear of the apse, while the statue of Tiberius and Darius may have adorned the niches at the sides. 3 p.m. it's ideal nap time. That's true. Ha! I'm infecting you with my yawning. Suffer with me. Italian history is not boring. I'm just a yawny pads. Oh god! She's talking about it. She can't stop. Ah! Ugh, it's infectious. We can readily see why the colonnade was made so high, and in 2 stories, when a lower structure would have afforded better protection against the sun and rain. Had it been limited to the usual height, the corridor behind it would have been too dark. And if, instead of a double series of small columns, one above the other, there had been a single series of large columns of the usual proportions, the thickness of the latter would have shut out much light, and have made the colonnade seem less roomy. The arrangement adopted had the further advantage that it harmonized with the aspect of the colonnade with that of the portico. the character of which, as we have seen, was determined by that of the colonnade about the forum. Can't function at any job without the iconic 10 a.m. nap. A 10 a.m. nap? I've barely been awake long enough for that. Nunnery games, morphogenic fields. Yes! I am delivering tiredness, or at least yawns to you via morphogenic fields. Yes, yes. Siesta is needed for any person to function. I would like a siesta right now, but we can't. I have to go to the gym after this. Then I have to eat dinner. Then maybe I can have a sleep. "10 a.m. nap, woke up and went to work at 2 a.m. Ugh. Who's Jim? It's a guy you see when you want to get fit. Been gym in it. Going gym in it. The small rooms of irregular shape at the sides of the apse were light courts left open to the sky in order to furnish light to the corridor at the rear, which was shut off from the colonnade. The corridor was about 14 feet high. Its walls still have remains of decoration in the third style. At the right of the broad niche, in which the statue of an Enumachia was found, a door opened into the passage leading from Abadanza Street. In the corresponding position at the left, where there was no entrance, a door was painted upon the wall. This is a folding door in 3 parts, of a kind quite common at Pompeii. The middle part is hung by means of hinges, like those on doors of the present day, fastened to one of the leaves at the sides, while these are represented as swinging on pivots at the top and the bottom. A stairway at the southeast corner of the corridor over the entrance from Abadanza Street led to an upper room. A similar stairway was placed in the last of the little rooms between the court and the portico at the left of the front entrance. The upper rooms, difficult to reach, could hardly have been intended for sales rooms. They must have been low, probably no higher than the difference between the height of the colonnade and that of the corridor. They were most likely used as temporary storerooms for goods for the dealers. If you ever get time, look up the many graffiti of Pompeii. It will make you realize Romans were ancient memes and shit posters. Humanity was always a shit poster and meme machine. We could just never share them quite much. My favourite is "Farewell, wondrous woman. I now long for men's pie." Wonderful. In front of the entrance from Abadanza Street is a fountain of the ordinary Pompeian form. As the material is limestone, it is probably of later date than other fountains, which are generally of basalt. As may be seen in our illustration, the inlet pipe was carried by a broad standard projecting above the edge of the basin, on the front of which a bust of a female figure with the cornucopia is carved in relief. The right side of the face has been worn away by eager drinkers pressing their mouths against the mouth of the figure, bleh, whence the jet issued. It reminds of one of the attenuated right foot of the famous bronze St. Peter in Rome. Hands have worn deep, polished hollows in the stone on either side of the standard. The figure represented Concordia Augusta, but the name Abundantia, given to it when first discovered, still lingers in the Italian name for the street, which might more appropriately have been called Strada della Concordia. Chapter 16. The Comitium. Words. The second favorite is, we two men, friends forever, were here. Our names are Gaius and Annulus. This was carved in the Roman equivalent of a pub. Oh, you know, they just had, like, they got drunk and had, like, the deepest conversation they've ever had, and they've just cried on each other's shoulder, going, you're my best friend! No, you're my best friend! Gaius! Annulus! Like that. That's how they were when they were carving that. Can we click the fig? We can click the fig. This is the fig. Abadanza Street. A room. There's only two. This is a small building. The last building on the east side of the Forum, south of Abadanza Street, had undergone a complete transformation a short time before the destruction of the city. Before the rebuilding, a row of pillars separated the interior of the structure from the Forum and from the street. At the edge of the sidewalk along the latter are square holes opposite the pillars. For you, Benjamin, for you. Fig. 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 Evidently designed for the insertion of posts, so that a temporary barrier of some sort could be set up. The end of the space within the barrier where this came to the Forum, and the rest of the street as well, could be shut off by lattice gates. If the barrier were set up and the lattice gate at the Forum end left open, the building and the space within the barrier would be shut off from Abadanza Street, but closely connected with the Forum by the numerous entrances. After rebuilding, only two entrances from the Forum were left, and one from Abadanza Street. It is altogether unlikely that so large a building of a regular shape and with pillars on two sides was provided with a roof. We have here an open space rather serving as an extension of the Forum. The walls were covered with marble and adorned with niches, in which, without doubt, statues were placed. On the south side is a large recess, the floor of which, reached by a flight of steps, formed a kind of platform or tribune about 4 feet above the pavement of the enclosure. A small door at the right leads into a narrow room containing a similar platform opening on the colonnade of the Forum, and, to all appearances, once accessible, form it by steps. Afterwards, both the steps and the tribune were walled up. The purposes of these tribunes and of this building as a whole is far from clear. Far from clear. The analogy, however, suggests itself. On one side of the Roman Forum, near the upper end, was a small rectangular open space called a comitium, used in early times as a voting place. Between the Forum and the comitium was originally a speaker's platform, the rostra, so placed that ornators, by turning toward one side, could address an audience in the comitium, and facing about could harangue the Forum. Though the latter changes have obscured the original form of our building, yet it is plain that at one time there must have been two connected tribunes, one facing the Forum and the other the enclosed open space. We may at least hazard the conjecture that the colonists of Sulla, taking the arrangements of the capital as their pattern in all things, design this place as their comitium. The enclosure was too small to admit of its use for voting according to the ancient fashion, but general elections in the comitium had long been a thing of the past. Only the unimportant curate elections were held there, at which each curia was represented by a lictor, and at the other times the place was used for justicial proceedings. So our building was probably used, if not for elections, for formalities preliminary to the elections, and for business connected with the court. So basically, they have no idea. Harangue the masses! Harangue-o-tang, if you will. Chapter 17. The municipal buildings. Basically, City Hall, maybe? This building was used, probably. It had doors. Doors. And it had a barrier that could be put up, which is interesting. We think it might have been this thing, but it doesn't seem like it's that thing. Here's a building. Dunno, probably is for things. Maybe a courtroom, maybe. We don't know. We don't know. The experts don't know. We don't know. We can guess. At the south end of the forum were 3 buildings similar in plan and closely connected. In front they presented a common facade, the narrow spaces between them being entered by low doors. The building at the right, this particular fig, was at the corner of the forum, while the space separating the other 2 lay on a line dividing the forum into 2 equal parts. East of the last building is the Strada delle Scrole. The original Golden Corral buffet. Oh. The 3 buildings were erected after the earthquake of '63 on the site of older buildings of the same character. In the walls of that furthest east, considerable remains of the earlier walls are embodied. In that near the corner, the original pavement is preserved, and in the middle building there are traces of the original pavement. Previously to this, rebuilding the inner series of columns belonging to the colonnade about the forum had in part been removed, and a barrier set up by which the space in front of the middle building and that at the left could be shut off, indicated on the plan by broken lines. At the time of the eruption, only the building at the left was entirely finished. The others still lacked their decoration on both inner and outer walls. These 3 spacious halls must have served the purposes of the city's administration. The 2 at the right and the left are alike in having the end opposite the entrance in an apse large enough to accommodate 1 or more magistrates with their attendants. They were the official quarters of the Adelaides and the Dumvirs, while the middle hall was the council chamber curia, where the decurious met. Honestly, yeah, some modern day structures really would be. Could, like, if you went into somewhere that's like, I don't know, designed for like escape rooms. Escape rooms! They would be really confusing. Just be like the biologists when they find a body part they can't explain. Probably for mating purposes. What if we made it inside the mysterious Pompeii building? Please do not mate in the ancient historical building. It will taint the artifact. And your child may get cursed. That's that also. Holding hands, you degenerate. Get yourself down to the local brothel like a good Rome. The middle room was obviously intended to be the most richly ornamented out of the three, and was further distinguished from the others by the elevation of its floor, which was more than 2 feet above the pavement of the colonnade. In front of the entrance is a platform reached at either end by an approach hardly wide enough for 2 persons, thus suited for a select rather than a large attendance. View of the south end of the forum. In the background, there are ruins of the municipal buildings. So they're like way over here in the background. Fuck, I cannot stop. I really cannot stop. Ah! Along the sides within runs a ledge a little more than 5 feet above the floor, on which rested a double series of columns, one above the other, serving both as ornament and as a support for a ceiling like that of the Temple of Jupiter. If we picture ourselves the columns in place, the walls covered with marble, and a rich coffered ceiling above, we are led to form a favourable idea of the recuperative powers of the city which set about the construction of such costly and splendid buildings so soon after a terrible earthquake. That is true. They got into the repair work so fast. Explaining arcade centres to caveman. Oh. Walking into Harrods in the year 2450, it appears to be a massive sacrificial chamber where scores of peasants were devoured by a mysterious god. I mean, that sounds about right. About right. The recess at the rear was designed for a large shrine patterned after the small shrines of the lares and penitents in the houses, not the shrines. The penitents of the city were above all the emperor and his family, and this shrine had been finished figures representing Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian would probably have been placed in it, facing the 3 Capitoline divinities in the Temple of Jupiter at the other end of the forum. The office of the Adelaides, situated at the corner of the colonnade and close to the basilica, with no barrier to prevent ready access, was particularly convenient for magistrates who, among other duties, were charged with the maintenance of order and the enforcement of regulations in the markets. One or perhaps both Adelaides sat in the apicé, while the rear and middle parts of the room were reserved for those who had business with them. The front part, lower than the rest by 2 steps, may have served as a waiting room. At the rear of the apicé and in the walls at the sides were niches for the statues of members of the imperial family and of those who had rendered important services to the city. St. Peter's Basilica. Domitian. Yeah, Domitian. Dommy. Daddy. Ballista. 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 Ballistas. 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 Potatoes. I can read. This book has so many words that I don't think I've ever heard spoken out loud before. Or if I have, it's not been since school and I don't bloomin' remember. As the Dumvirs not only sat as judges, but also had their hands in the financial administration of the city, we can see why the hall set aside for their use was the first to be rebuilt after the earthquake. The magistrates, of course, sat in the apse along the wall of which was a ledge for statues. St. Peter's Bazongas. Oh my. Filth! Where was I? Along the wall of which was a ledge for statues. The strong front doors were fastened with iron bolts, and there was also a lattice gate on the step in front of the threshold. Probably the archives of the Dumvirial office were kept within. The small side door at the right made it possible to enter and leave the building after business hours, or at other times when the large doors were closed. Filthy Saint Filth! Filth! So much filth. Put your St. Peters away, goddammit. Filth! Wonderful. 10 out of 10. Temple of Venus Pomania. The Pomeranian version of the goddess Venus. So the most beautiful Pomeranian you've ever seen. This stream is gonna get us excommunicated. Yeah. I thought not safe for work was banned in chat, but here people are talking about their SPs. I know, right? Just... it's so shocking. Next thing you know, they're going to be asking us to show ankles again. Like, ugh. For some years, it had been known that a temple once stood in the rectangular block south of the Strada della Marina. And in 1898, workmen excavating here began to uncover the massive foundations. When the volcanic deposits had been removed, it was seen that the court of the temple, with the surrounding colonnade, occupied the whole area between the Balisca and the western wall of the long room, now used as a museum. On the podium, Fig 55, Maiden raid, maiden raid, maiden raid, maiden raid. Oh, heavens forbid your wrists. Well, those are kind of already on show. We're already a little slutty right now with our wrists. But our SPs, everyone, just be careful about your SPs. Welcome, maiden. Welcome, raiders. Where were we? We're talking about the cutest Pomeranian, Venus Pomerania. Pomania. Pomiana, probably. Pomiana. I might be getting it wrong. We'll get there eventually. Hope you're having a good stream. Your mic broke! Oh, Baba. That's poop. Hey, maiden, we show each other our St. Peter's until the Pope excommunicates. No, we will not bring maiden into this filth. Maiden, keep your St. Peter's hidden, okay? Yeah. Pomiana. What happened? I'm lost. Scott, you don't need to know. You shouldn't know the filth. You shouldn't know. You shouldn't know. It's fine. Twitch is confused, and it is fine. If you want to know, you'll have to go to YouTube chat. Where were we? Now used to museum. On the podium, Fig 55, was found a part of a statuette of Venus, of the familiar type which represents the goddess as preparing to enter the bath. It was probably a votive offering set up by some worshipper in the subterranean passageway entered near the southeast corner. Oh no, normal size phantom has infected the Twitch. The excavators found another votive offering, a bronze steering paddle of the kind shown in paintings as an attribute of Venus Pompeii. An example may be seen in Fig 12. Where is Fig 12? I clicked it. That's Fig 4. Fig 5. Fig 6. Fig 7. Fig 8. Plan. Fig 9. Fig 10. Fig 11. Fig 12. That is not what I was expecting. We demand figs. I do demand figs. Now I've completely lost where I am, though. This is the risk of the fig hyperlinks. We've already read all this. We're nearly there. We're in today's reading, at least. I read about the buildings. Here we go. From these indications, as well as from the size of the temple and its location near the forum, on an elevation commanding a wide view of the sea, we are safe in assigning the sanctuary to Venus Pompeii, the patron deity of Roman Pompeii. So Venus was the patron deity of the city. Prior to the founding of the Roman colony, the site of the temple had been occupied by houses, built in several stories on the edge of the hill, which here sloped sharply towards the southeast. Remains of the houses, which must have resembled those farther east, have been brought to light in the course of the excavations. In less than a century and a half, the temple was twice built, twice destroyed. A third building was in progress at the time of the eruption. Wow, so they couldn't keep this temple up. It kept falling down. Degeneracy, heresy, man. Yeah, it's degeneracy and heresy. I became more elderly the more I said figs. Are the figs aging me? I don't want that. So this is the plan of the... oh god, it's large. She has a big old temple, but if she's a patron deity, it makes sense. There's a joke there about keeping up. I love that cheat where you're like, my brain is degenerate enough that I notice the joke, but I morally do not want to say it, therefore I will just tell everyone where the joke is, but not say the joke. Hello, Wallace, welcome! The first temple was erected in the early years of the Roman colony. An area approximately 185 Roman square feet was prepared for it by levelling off and filling up terrace walls being built to hold the earth and rubbish used for filling. The foundations of the walls about the court can still be traced except on the south side, where perhaps the consequence of the earthquake at the time of the eruption, every vestige has disappeared, and the southwest corner where excavators for building materials in modern times have been. Carried below the Roman level, a part of the foundation of the temple itself having been removed, the walls conformed to the direction of the walls of the basilica. the corners, as those of the basilica, showing a noticeable divergence from a right angle. So there was not much left of this temple by the time we found it. It was on the floor, in the floor. The front of the earlier colonnade is outlined by the gutter, constructed of blocks of tufa, which show signs of long use, and the foundation of the stylobate behind the gutter, which is plainly seen. In places, as indicated in the plan, the layer of mortar spread over this foundation shows the impression made by the blocks of the stylobate, which rested on it. At the middle of the north side, both the gutter and the wall under the stylobate were removed, when the foundations of the third temple were extended in that direction. Along the gutter were basins for water used in cleaning the floor of the court, which was made of fine concrete. The entrance to the court was at the northeast corner. On the east of the court were 6 rooms, the rear of which was formed by a wall. 2 of these opened on the colonnade in their whole breadth, the 4 with narrow doors, the thresholds of which, of whitish limestone, are still in place. Their purpose cannot be determined. The cross walls shown in the plan on the west side belonged to an earlier building, and have nothing to do with the temple. In front of the temple are remains of a large altar of whitish limestone. On the east side of the court is the base of an equestrian statue of the same material, which was afterwards veneered with marble. Near it is a pedestal of a standing figure of masonry covered with stucco, and behind this is the small base of a fountain figure. Near the southeast corner is the entrance to a subterranean passageway which runs towards the south. It probably led to rooms of earlier houses which were preserved when the area was filled up, for the use of the attendants of the temple. The temple itself, as the other edifices, religious and secular, of the first years of Roman colony, must have been built of common materials and coated with stucco. Of the existing remains, only the inner part of the podium can be assigned to it. A series of small blocks of tufa at the rear end is perhaps remnant of the cornice which was carried around the upper edge of the podium. To the Pomeranians of the empire, the modest structure of republican days seemed unworthy of the tutelary divinity of their city. On the same podium they built a temple of marble. Of this are preserved the foundations of the doorposts of the cella and the core of the pedestal, on which stood the statue of the divinity, besides some bits of the cellar floor, which consisted of a border of white mosaic, and a broad strip of pavement of small flags of coloured marble, and an ornamental centre now entirely destroyed. The only remains of the superstructure that can be identified are in a storeroom north of the Temple of Apollo. They consisted of fragments of large marble columns, nearly 32 inches in diameter, and of an entablature of corresponding dimensions. Thick. After the completion of the temple, the Pomeranians set out rebuilding the colonnade of a scale of equal magnificence. First of all, they enlarged the court by removing the old walls to the foundations, and constructed new outside walls, the corners of which form right angles. The wall on the north side, of rectangulate work, can be distinguished in that on the east side is also well preserved. But of that on the south side no trace remains. The deep foundations of the wall on the west side forms the farther wall of the present museum, the roof of which very nearly represents the level of the floor of the ancient court. The colonnade was to be single on the north, double on the east and west sides. The principal entrance was at the northeast corner, with a smaller entrance at the end of the narrow street, south of the basilica. How far the work had progressed before the earthquake of the year 63 is not easy to determine. The new gutter along the front of the colonnade had not yet been laid, but the foundations of the rows of columns were for the most part ready. From the Corinthian capital and fragments of shafts and entablature lying about the court, it is clear that these members were fitted and placed when they were thrown down. Part of the colonnade was, therefore, finished. It was in 2 stories, probably without any intervening floor, like that of the porticos in front of the Maliseum and the building of Numancia. Not less than 300 marble columns must have been required to complete the work. Undoubtedly, the wall back of the colonnade was divided off by pillars below the half columns above, the intervening spaces between being filled with marble. In point size, the temple, with its court, formed the largest sanctuary in riches of material, the most splendid edifice of the entire city. The great earthquake felled to the ground, alike the finished temple and the unfinished colonnade. But the Pompeanians, in their time of trouble, least all disposed, we may assume, to forsake their patron goddess, soon commenced the work of rebuilding, postponing the renewal and completion of the colonnade as of secondary importance. They cleared away the debris of the temple, and on the podium, where the cella had stood reconstructed, a temporary place of worship, a small wooden building strengthened at the bottom by a low wall around the outside. Then they proceeded to enlarge the podium. The third temple was to be even more imposing than its predecessor. The old steps were removed from the front. The existing podium was cut back 5 Roman feet on each side and 4 inches at the rear to form the core of the new podium. On all sides of this, a massive foundation wall was commenced, 5.5 Roman feet thick, made of large blocks of basalt carefully worked and fitted. A similar wall was carried through the old podium to serve as the foundation for the front wall of the cella. The relative size of the component parts of the new temple is thus clearly indicated. The cella was to extend over the space BCCB, the portico over that marked. How far the steps were to project in front is uncertain. Washington, D.C. was built on a swamp. It's mostly because swamps are very fertile land. Like, it's easy to grow stuff there. So, people settled there. And then, consequences. Oh, I needed a stretch. Ooh, we'll probably finish after this one. At the time of the eruption, 5 courses of basalt had been laid, reaching the height of more than 4 feet, the space between the core of the old podium and the outer wall being filled with concrete as the work progressed. On the north side of the court are still to be seen a number of blocks of basalt not yet trimmed and fitted. just as they were abandoned by the workmen when the work stopped forever. Damn. So, poor old Temple of Venus they were trying to rebuild it, but it was a big old building. DC is hot and humid because of that. It makes you feel kinda icky walking around in summer. Wild. The politician's natural habitat. Fortuna Augusta. Yes. But I do have some bad news for you, Benjamin. We will have to read about Fortuna Augusta next stream. Which will be Sunday, to be fair. You don't have that long to wait until the next Pompeii stream. Because we're getting near the time that I will need to stop, and it's a good place to stop. We'll have to save the luck goddess till next time. And then we're near the end. I know. I want to read about the luck goddess too, but we gotta wait. Gotta wait. Nearly there. Like I said, you only have to wait a few days. I will be streaming tomorrow, but when I did my last Patreon stream, I had a lot of fun doing some crochet, and I want to do some crochet, so we're gonna do some crochet tomorrow. We're gonna be doing some tapestry crochet, which is basically like pixel art for crochet. It's quite fun, kind of complicated, especially since I'm tackling something that has 7 colors. But it'll be good. I look forward to it. But Granny, I want. It's fine. Internet Granny. Reality age doesn't matter. I could be Internet Granny anyway. But that is all for now. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, everyone in chat. Thank you, anyone who lurked. Thank you, anyone who watches the VOD. I really appreciate you coming. No matter, and interacting, no matter which way you decide to do it. I'm genuinely curious on how your rankings are right now. Who's winning? When I go to the community board, it has like actual names. So Boris is number 1, Benjamin's number 2, and Howdy's number 3. Well done, guys. I was just kind of curious. 7 colors in her hair, maybe. If you have not already, I would highly appreciate it if you could leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you're on Twitch, to give the channel a cheeky follow, that'd be lovely. If you've done all that and you've joined the Discord and you would like to support me in other ways, you can do so via the list of shilling. The list of shilling includes YouTube membership, where you get emotes, exclusive streams, Discord channel, merch discounts, and chat commands. There is the Patreon, where you get short stories, exclusive streams, merch discounts, free books. I need to give them chat commands. And the Kofi, where if you like my emotes, you can commission me to draw some. And the merch store, where you can get ebooks, messages, and copies of books I've written. Notebook, pillow, crochet potato, and I also have a crochet store on Etsy called Briony Rose Crafts, where I have other crochet creations for you to check out. And I'm still waiting for my audiobook. We're still waiting. It's still in review. So are we still waiting? Yep, still in review. I literally gave the website a refresh just then because I'm like, please, Amazon, accept my book, please, accept my recording. Anyway, I'll keep you posted on that. Follow the socials for instant updates. But until then, I will see you guys tomorrow, where we're going to do some crochet. Until then, I had fun. I hope you had fun. This has been Briony Rose Smith. I'm the Finn Library. Goodbye.